Hello dear viewers of my channel. As promised, here is the new part of everyone's favorite manhwa. Before starting the video, I would like to thank this girl for supporting my channel with her donation. Thank you very much. I would also like to thank all the sponsors of the channel and the guys who support my videos with their comments. Thank you all. Anyway, I wish everyone a pleasant viewing. The queen asked if Lloyd was really so sure that he was performing his duties as ruler better than her, and the guy replied that that was exactly what he thought. Lloyd admitted that watching from the sidelines, he realized that he could have handled these duties better. The queen looked silently at Lloyd, showing no emotion, when suddenly her face showed irritation and she did not understand Lloyd's bold statement, because just watching her had worn him out to such an extent. The main character stated that whenever a driver is bad, the passenger gets carsick, and the girl immediately became angry, saying that Lloyd hadn't seen even a tenth of her work. Lloyd immediately made a mocking face and said that at least what he had seen was incredibly easy. The queen couldn't take it anymore and hit the main character on the head, then continued to strike the guy, who didn't seem to be resisting at all. The main character immediately took back all his words, saying that he definitely couldn't handle the queen's job. The girl stopped, shaking with anger, and offered the guy to learn how to be a ruler by watching her, when suddenly Lloyd declared that he would only need 3 minutes to do so. The main character asked to be given the role of king for just 3 minutes, and he would be able to impress the girl. The queen immediately agreed to Lloyd's terms, after which she began to drag Lloyd's body toward the table. The girl immediately set a timer, which signified Lloyd's short reign. The queen declared that from that moment on, Lloyd was king, and she was curious to see him. Lloyd immediately changed. It seemed as if his aura had turned 180 degrees. Lloyd was immediately struck by the fact that the girl dared to raise her head in front of her king and ordered her to lower it. The queen was immediately enraged and tried to attack the guy, but the main character suggested that the girl was only capable of defending her place with her fists. The main character ordered the girl to show respect as the king deserved. Sweat began to appear on the main character's neck, and the girl stood still, unable to strike, and began to lower her fist, seemingly agreeing not to use force. Lloyd immediately rejoiced that he had managed to survive this horror. He immediately ordered the girl to kneel down, and she immediately obeyed, while Lloyd ordered her to listen carefully to his words. Lloyd immediately ordered the girl to abandon her duties and take care of her own treatment. The queen began to appear, as she already considered the matter closed. Lloyd immediately began to shout that the girl had dared to interrupt the king's speech, and she began to apologize in shock. The girl listened carefully as Lloyd said that she simply did not trust her people, and he could understand that. Lloyd also admitted that he understood perfectly well that the reason for the girl's behavior was her concern for the people. The main character called the girl the greatest monarch and asked what would happen to the kingdom if she was consumed by the curse. Lloyd admitted that if the girl was incapable of anything, it would immediately lead to the collapse of the empire. The girl listened as Lloyd told her that she should take care of her health as much as she cared for the state, because these things were connected. The main character said that the most important thing now was for the girl to heal, and that any problems that arose could be easily solved later. Lloyd smiled and said that the queen would definitely be able to do it. The girl silently looked at the guy without showing any emotion, then lowered her head and finally said that she would definitely carry out her king's orders. The main character hoped that the queen had finally understood his thoughts and would change her mind. The main character immediately said that they should increase the budget for Lloyd's county, and the girl couldn't even oppose Lloyd at that moment. Suddenly, the queen's face changed, because Lloyd's time was up. The main character looked at the queen with a serious expression on his face. They sat silently facing each other for a while, after which Lloyd began to bow down before the queen, who immediately began to beat Lloyd with her feet while the guy apologized for his actions. The girl remembered Lloyd's words that he would prove that he was a better king than her, but in the end, she still did not understand how exactly the guy had proven it. Lloyd said that as a pathetic servant, he was incapable of such a thing and had simply lied. The queen immediately began to beat the guy even more vigorously, thinking that she actually understood Lloyd's actions. With a smile on her face, she thought that from that night on, she liked Lloyd even more, while continuing to beat the main character with her foot. Some time later, the sun was shining brightly in the street, and the main character was sitting next to the queen. The girl took her hand away from the guy and began to examine it carefully, while Lloyd congratulated the queen on completing her treatment. The girl immediately began to smile at the main character, and the system immediately announced that Lloyd had received the title of the queen's spouse and that she would sense when Lloyd was in danger and come to his aid. The main character returned to his lands to deal with the matters that had accumulated there. Lloyd thought about how he needed to find a solution to the phenomenon of fate restoration. But the main problem was the King of Hell, who could come for his soul at any moment. The main character understood perfectly well that the King of Hell could not simply invade the world of the living, and for this reason, he had to perform some kind of ritual. Lloyd thought that as soon as he interrupted the ritual, he would be able to stop the King of Hell. Some time later, the main character found himself near the pearl. He was going to use this artifact to find the answer to his question. Unexpectedly, the pearl did not react to Lloyd. He did not understand what was happening to the artifact, so he immediately began to examine the pearl in the hope of finding out what was going on. Suddenly, the main character's expression changed completely. He noticed a huge crack, which shocked him, because he was sure that the artifact could last for thousands of years. The main character thought that everything he had created in this world was falling apart. Suddenly, the demon queen also plunged into the water. The girl confessed that absolutely everything the main character had built in this world was beginning to collapse. She said that some things had already been completely destroyed by this point in time. Lloyd was immediately shocked by this information, as these were new problems for him. Sometime later, the main character flew over a huge abyss, after which he immediately asked his pet to act, and he immediately began to pour out a huge amount of earth. The demon queen reported that cracks had appeared on the bridge, and Lloyd immediately ordered to contact the queen and tell her to block traffic on the bridge until he figured out what was going on. Some time later, huge problems began in the port city of Crema. A huge number of incredibly terrifying monsters moved towards the city, but the mermaids immediately began to move towards the monsters at incredible speed, then just as deftly threw them towards their enemies. Xavier reported that they had managed to deal with the monsters thanks to the mermaids, and also that the ice prison was now being restored by Bayern. The main character immediately ordered to send many more people to guard the Count's mansion. Lloyd seemed very worried about what was happening around him. Xavier also picked up on Lloyd's tense mood. At that time, on Lloyd's territory, the man was giving orders to his people to repair all the buildings efficiently. It seemed that there was complete chaos around, and something terrible was happening, when suddenly one of the girls started talking. She said that all the people in this place were incredibly busy, while the red-haired woman said that people's lives were short, and that was why they were so busy. The red-haired woman said that she knew exactly where her son was, after which they began their journey to Lloyd's estate. The demons noticed the strange women moving towards them and immediately warned them to stop, as they were not allowed to be there. The girl simply waved her hand, and in an instant, all the demons were thrown into the air, literally from a single wave of the girl's hand. The girl's daughter said that these guys looked like good people, but the red-haired woman said that it didn't matter to her, because it would be quicker this way anyway. The girls continued on their way, when suddenly Xavier appeared before them with the Queen of Demons. The guys immediately prepared for a tough battle with their enemies. The red-haired girl was beside herself with rage, because in her opinion, more and more flies were arriving. Suddenly, Xavier heard the incredibly loud voice of a dragon who climbed out of his window and began to shout at his betrothed. The girl waved at the dragon, equally happy to see him. At the estate, they discussed how the dragon had been contacting them every day, which is why they forgave him. The dragon assumed that all his calls had been blocked by his evil mother, who regretted not burning the boy. The mother said that they were done talking and that it was time for them to go home. The dragon silently looked at the girl, because before leaving, he had to meet one person. Lloyd was digging furiously with his shovel. He looked incredibly tired, and the other people didn't look any better. The dragon said that Lloyd had worked incredibly hard, but Lloyd looked at the dragon sitting next to him and said that he had worked tolerably well and had room for improvement. The dragon asked if the artifact had told him how to fight against the restoration of fate. Lloyd stood silently, not answering the question. The dragon assumed that the boy didn't like the method at all. The dragon asked if Lloyd understood that from now on, things would only get worse, and that such a fix would only buy him a little time. Lloyd immediately replied that he understood these facts perfectly well, while the dragon was amazed that the boy did not hesitate for even a second. The dragon began to rise to his feet, then asked if he could help Lloyd in any way because in the end he actually liked the main character a little. Lloyd admitted that he couldn't do anything for the dragon in return, which is why he wouldn't ask for help. The dragon suggested that if he really could help, Lloyd would definitely make him do it, even if he was against it. The dragon admitted that he was going home and that he had had a nice rest in this place. The dragon asked Lloyd to keep going, confessing that he would continue to believe in him. The main character assumed that if dragons, heaven, and hell started a war, the scale would be so terrible that the world had never seen anything like it. Lloyd believed that if he could personally deal with the invasion of the King of Hell, he would greatly reduce the damage done to the world. The main character moved forward, thinking that in order to stop the King of Hell, he first needed to restore the pearl. Suddenly, Xavier called out to his master, admitting that the dragon was completely right and that at this rate, they would never be able to solve the problem. Xavier asked Lloyd to tell him something, asking him to explain the method suggested by the Pearl of Truth. Lloyd silently looked at Xavier, then said that the Pearl did not know the answer to that question, and he called it useless. Xavier continued to insist that Lloyd tell him about the solution to their problems. Lloyd silently looked at his friend, then repeated his words that the artifact did not know the solution, while Xavier continued to demand the truth. Lloyd asked Xavier to stop what he had started, but he was not going to back down, seemingly determined to learn the truth that the hero was trying so hard to hide. Lloyd said that they should end this, calling Xavier an idiot. Xavier wondered why Lloyd was hiding something like this from him. Xavier shouted that Lloyd shouldn't try to deal with everything alone, that they should think about a solution together. Xavier shouted that they were real friends, while Lloyd immediately shouted back, asking who Xavier considered his friend. The people around them were shocked by what they heard from Lloyd, while Lloyd looked at Xavier with an angry expression on his face. Xavier apologized for his actions in an incredibly sad voice, admitting that he had crossed the line, after which Lloyd began to walk away from the guy standing there. In his mind, Lloyd apologized to his friend. He just couldn't tell him that one of them had to die to save the world. Thank you very much to everyone who watched this video to the end. Before you leave, I would really like to ask you to watch my other videos, because the next video about Lloyd will only be released in a week. Thank you all, see you next time.